We've sneaked in one more question, and it comes from Carl Becker.
Good evening. My question to both of you is, regardless of the current rhetoric, would either of you name one positive thing that you respect in one another?
Hello, it's your girl Sarah here, and today we're going to be compiling a more detailed analysis of the debates and something that I noticed might be a flaw for the Democratic Party's attraction. Won the 2016 election, as I think most of us agree that the 2020 presidential debate was just riddled with interruptions and chaos. However, it is something that is important when it comes to rallying people of different parties. This first one that we're going to be looking at is the 2016 general election, Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump. This is towards the end of the debate.
Mr. Trump, would you like to go first?
Well, I certainly will, because I think that's a very fair and important question. Look, I respect his children. His children are incredibly able and devoted, and I think that says a lot about Donald. I don't agree with nearly anything else he says or does, but I do respect that. And I think that is something that, as a mother and a grandmother, is very important to me. So I believe that this election has become, in part, so conflict-oriented, so intense, because there's a lot at stake. This is not an ordinary time, and this is not an ordinary election. We are going to be choosing a president who will set policy for not just 4 or 8 years, but because of some of the important decisions we have to make here at home and around the world, from the Supreme Court to energy and so much else. And so there is a lot at stake. It's one of the most consequential elections that we've had. And that's why I've tried to put forth specific policies and plans, trying to get it off of the personal and put it on to what it is I want to do as president. And that's why I hope people will check on that for themselves, so that they can see that, yes, I've spent 30 years, actually maybe a little more, working to help kids and families, and I want to take all that experience to the White House and do that every single day.
So, as you can see, Hillary Clinton starts off with complimenting Donald Trump's kids. And this can kind of wheel you in a little bit. She gets a little bit personal for probably about a couple seconds there, talking about how she's herself is a grandmother. She values people's responsibilities over their kids, and that's one thing that she likes about them. She then talks about the president's responsibilities and justifications for her policies and her background. This comes off as a defensive move in case of what Donald says is something to try to undermine her statement inside a sense. And that's the reason why it kind of comes off as defensive. That's her ensuring that her campaign makes it through this statement, even though the statement isn't about her campaign at all necessarily, which literally sets him up perfectly for what he's about to say.
Mr. Trump.
Well, I consider her statement about my children to be a very nice compliment. I don't know if it was meant to be a compliment, but it is a great. I'm very proud of my children. And they've done a wonderful job, and they've been wonderful, wonderful kids. So I consider that a compliment. I will say this about Hillary. She doesn't quit. She doesn't give up. I respect that. I tell it like it is. She's a fighter. I disagree with much of what she's fighting for. I do disagree with her judgment in many cases. But she does fight hard, and she doesn't quit, and she doesn't give up, and I consider that to be a very good trait.
Thanks to both of you.
Notice how Trump thanks Hillary Clinton and then commends her direct competence and persistence inside politics. She's a fighter. She doesn't give up, directly answering the questions personally, and not trying to gain political points while actually getting political points because the authenticity of it probably generates for the audience approval. I bring this up because I believe this is an effective communication technique in the importance of authenticity at any speak given. Nobody in usual conversation is going to be saying, oh, well, this election is very unusual, or talk deeply into the duties of the President of the United States. However, they will talk about personal lives and experience, because regardless of what a lot of people this next clip is going to be starting onto the 2020 vice presidential debate. This happened actually about a week or two ago. Overall, this is going to be the next part of our analysis, though. So, here, I'll just play the clip and then I'll give another comment. Say, oh, I can't stand gossip. Just about everybody does it.
You know, I've written all the questions that I've asked tonight, but for the final question of the debate, I'd like to read a question that someone else wrote. The Utah Debate Commission asked students in the state to write essays about what they would like to ask you. And I want to close tonight's debate with the question posed by Brecklin Brown. She's an 8th grader at Springville Junior High in Springville, Utah. And here's what she wrote, quote, "When I watch the news, all I see is arguing between Democrats and Republicans. When I watch the news, all I see is citizen fighting against citizen. When I watch the news, all I see are two candidates from opposing parties trying to tear each other down. If our leaders can't get along, how are the citizens supposed to get along?" And then she added, "Your examples could make all the difference to bring us together," end quote. So to each of you in turn, I'd like you to take 1 minute and respond to Brecklin. Vice President Pence, you have 1 minute.
Brecklin, it's a wonderful question. And let me just commend you for taking an interest in public life. I started following the news when I was very young. And in America, we believe in a free and open exchange of debate. And we celebrate that. And it's how we've created literally the freest and most prosperous nation in the history of the world. I would tell you that don't assume that what you're seeing on your local news networks is synonymous with the American people. You know, I look at the relationship between Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the late justice who we just lost from the Supreme Court, and the late Justice Antonin Scalia. They were on polar opposites on the Supreme Court of the United States, one very liberal, one very conservative. But what's been learned since her passing was the two of them and their families were the very closest of friends. I mean, here in America, we can disagree. We can debate vigorously, as Senator Harris and I have on this stage tonight. But when the debate is over, we come together as Americans. And that's what people do in big cities and small towns all across this country. So I just want to encourage you, Brecklin. I want to tell you that we're going to work every day to have government as good as our people. And the American people each and every day love a good debate. We love a good argument. But we always come together and are always there for one another.
Thank you,
in
Vice
times of
President.
need. And we've especially learned that
Thank you,
through
Mr.
the
Vice President.
difficulties of this year.
Senator Harris, what would you say to Brecklin?
First of all, I love hearing from our young leaders. And when I hear her words, when I hear your words, Brecklin, I know our future is bright because it is that perspective on who we are and who we should be that is a sign of leadership and is something we should all aspire to be. And that, you know, that brings me to Joe. Joe Biden, one of the reasons that Joe decided to run for president is after Charlottesville, which we talked about earlier. It so troubled him and upset him, like it did all of us, that there was that kind of hate and division. What propelled Joe to run for president was to see that over the course of the last 4 years, what Brecklin described has been happening. Joe has a long-standing reputation of working across the aisle and working in a bipartisan way. And that's what he's going to do as president. Joe Biden has a history of lifting people up and fighting for their dignity. You mean you have to know Joe's story to know that Joe has known pain, he has known suffering, and he has known love. And so, Brecklin, when you think about the future, I do believe the future is bright. And it will be because of your leadership, and it will be because we fight for each person's voice through their vote, and we get engaged in this election because you have the ability through your work and through eventually your vote
Thank you,
to
Senator
determine
Harris.
the future of our country and what its leadership looks like.
Mike Pence starts off with the traditional American response of keeping it business and politics and maintaining an apolitical lives. He talks about the judge who recently passed away and Justice Scalia, how their close relationships, despite being polar opposites, flourished. You know, they had families together, or they had dinner together often. This comes off from an analytical standpoint as not taking the blame from social strives over the past 4 years from an analytical standpoint. But from a base viewer standpoint, it comes off as genuine, sincere, and authentic. He doesn't bring up the Trump campaign or try to sell his ticket necessarily from that questions and responses answers alone. Harris's response immediately acknowledges and confirms the question's validity. The issue is with doing this, she immediately goes into the Biden campaign. This comes off as an honest attack from an analytical standpoint because we have had clear social struggles over the last 4 years when it comes to groups, tension building up. But from a viewer-based standpoint, it comes off as, oh, well, she's just trying to sell her ticket. If she wanted to, what she should have done that would have made it better is talk more about specific examples over the last 4 years of how that questionnaire is correct and valid in making that statement, and possibly maybe relating it to the Trump campaign, but not directly saying it. You need to have the viewer come to that conclusion. This is a question that made me think about creating this video. To not always sell your idea by speaking about how yours works specifically, but how life is in modern society. You know, let them come to the conclusion that they need to buy whatever you're selling. On that note, I hope you are all doing wonderful. Hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Have a good, wonderful day.